Hi, I'm Sammy, and today I'll be teaching you about how the Dred Scott versus Sanford and Bleeding Kansas were key factors in the dissolution of the Union. So to begin, signs of the disbanding of the Union were seen long before its climax of civil war, but these issues of sectional tension between the North and South increased rapidly due to the events that happened between 1850 to 1860 until the idea of compromise between North and South was completely out of the question. One of these events that really caused the separating between North and South was the Dred Scott case, and the ruling of the case really destroyed chances of reconciliation between North and South because it exhibited the Southern view of slaves and aided to the spread of slavery, which really horrified the Northerners. So Dred Scott was a slave that tried to sue for his freedom in a free state, but the Supreme Court argued that because he was a slave, letting him be free would violate the Fifth Amendment, which states that no person can be deprived of their property. And in the final ruling, Supreme Court Justice Taney said that blacks were unfit to associate with the white race, either in social or political relations, and so far unfit that they had no rights to which the white man was bound to respect. This outraged the North. The highest federal court basically declared that slaves had no rights as human beings. They were just the possessions of their masters. Along with this, the Supreme Court also decided that it was unconstitutional for federal government to regulate slavery because it's not mentioned in the Constitution. So that would be the state's job to make those sort of laws. It would also interfere with the Fifth Amendment. So every law passed by Congress regulating slavery, like the Missouri Compromise or the Northwest Ordinance, were no longer applicable unless declared by the state. And based on these verdicts, the North could clearly see that their power in government was lacking compared to the South's power in government. And they were so taken aback by the disdain for slaves in federal court and the opportunity for slavery to spread to the North, and they began to accept that the tension between North and South is basically irreversible. Also, the taking away of the federal government's power to regulate slavery, consequences of that, and giving it to the state itself, the consequences of that were seen a couple of years earlier in our next topic, the Bleeding Kansas, which is clearly a key event in the dissolution of the Union because it brought sectional tensions to their highest point yet and was the first example of extreme violence over the issue of slavery that eventually merges into the Civil War. It spurred from the Kansas-Nebraska Act, in which Nebraska was split and both states employed popular sovereignty, where they were able to decide if they wanted to be a free or a slave state. The issue that was tearing the entire nation apart at the time would obviously have negative impacts on the Kansas Territory if they were forced to choose if they wanted to be free or slave. Neighboring states got involved in Kansas to pick a side, and conflict began to erupt between pro-slavery and anti-slavery groups. The Kansas Territory basically broke into its own civil war before the actual Civil War even began. The John Brown incident had slaves ordered to kill their masters, and the South was obviously completely offended that the North considered him a hero, and hostility even made its way to Congress with the Sumner Brooks incident. So at the time, it really served as a clear signal that there was no chance of reversing the intensifying hostility over slavery, and that this Civil War was unavoidable and imminent. To review, America has built up a road to the Civil War in which sectional tensions between North and South intensified from hatred to violence. The causes we covered today were the Dred Scott case and the Bleeding Kansas. Both of these events immensely separated the North from the South and really catalyzed the dissolution of the Union, while the Dred Scott case turned North even more against the Southern ideals and paved the way for slavery in the North. The Bleeding Kansas brought tensions between slavery supporters and abolitionists so high that violence and future civil war seemed to be the only option. Thank you for watching.